Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, one of my childhood heroes, died recently. And I think this hit me in such a weird way because I met the guy a few months ago.
Hi, Dave.
Chester, Dave.
Hi, Chester.
Hey, how are you? This is Hannah.
Nice to meet you.
Good.
This is my sister Hannah.
Hello.
Hi, Hannah. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine.
When I read the confirmation that he had died, I just felt weird and disconnected. Like, I didn't cry. I don't think that's how I deal with that kind of thing, judging from grandparents in the past and things like that. But I just felt kind of like things were going fast and I couldn't keep up. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well. So this video is essentially my tribute to Chester Bennington, someone who significantly shaped who I am. And it's not just like the crazy talent he had for singing that I want to address in this video. The thing I'm going to focus on is mainly his personality, because I've been watching through the footage I recorded when I met him and Mike Shinoda, and there have been some things that just jumped out at me which kind of exemplify what a good person he was in a few different ways. Like the most obvious one is his sense of humor, which I don't know, it was so unexpected from someone who was such a freaking rock star to have such a silly sense of humor, and that was really inspiring to me.
Yeah, at one point we were like, let's make polka music. You know, it's like, just to see, like, we're always trying to,
you know what it was?
ourselves.
It wasn't polka, it was that mariachi song. And I didn't know that mariachi, like some of my favorite hip hop, is very macho.
Dude, you have to be macho to wear a suit with sequins and a giant hat and like play your bass like up like this. And, like, that takes, you gotta be a man.
And sometimes, like, there were a few moments where I was a bit awkward, like, because I don't normally interview people I've been a fan of my entire life, so clearly there were times when I'd be slow to go on to the next topic or something like that.
I just want to say thank you very much for putting me on the path to doing my dream job.
That's
you
awesome.
Pretty much made my life.
You know,
Not to big it up or anything like that.
I mean, I have no problem taking credit for all of your accomplishments.
He just felt friendly, despite the fact that we'd never met. Perhaps the strangest, most reassuring part of this was just how many people messaged me asking if I was okay, because people associated me with Chester after that video, and it was a crazy number of messages. Like I haven't had this much since I came back after not posting anything at all for a year. I had friends that I hadn't talked to in years messaging me, like even through awkward situations where we hadn't really resolved problems. This took priority, and I guess that's the one positive side to this, is that it showed that people really can be caring. It's a reminder of your priorities. And I think that's why I made this. Initially I had no idea what I would say that wouldn't have been said by a million other people. After thinking about it, there is value to saying the same obvious things that other people are saying. If you've got a friend who is struggling with depression, for instance, perhaps if one friend says it to them, they might be 10% more likely to go and see that therapist. If two people say it, perhaps it's 20%. And if they see someone make a video of it, perhaps that goes up a few extra percent. Saying obvious things is sometimes important, I think. One thing I did think was a bit more specific that I could mention was, I've been researching for a video on a topic called stratified medicine. Basically, it uses your DNA to inform medical decisions. So for instance, if you're suffering from depression, they'll take your DNA and tell you, oh, okay, you are likely to respond to this, this, and this medication. This one, which is normally commonly prescribed, isn't likely to help you. In fact, it could potentially harm you. If you're struggling and you've tried a lot of stuff already, that's something you can Google. One thing that struck me when looking back at the footage was how thoughtful he is. For instance, as soon as he and Mike came through the door, I started chatting to Mike. He went and got a chair to sit down so that everyone would be clearly visible in the camera. Me being the complete novice at this, like I hadn't thought, oh crap, we're not going to be able to see everyone in the camera properly if I sit here. But he just kind of helped out. He just got the chair and sat down and didn't think much of it. And I don't know, I didn't even realize that until afterwards. Just little things like that. Another example would be when we were recording, some people were talking outside the room, and he yelled,
Hey, shut the fuck up out there! Jeez! They're so fucking loud. Dude.
Loud.
You know what I mean? Like, no fucking respect.
Should we? Well, now we're in.
just being silly. But like, it was, he thought that like that was a problem, and he chose to fix it in a silly way, but also he thought those people should be more respectful that we were filming something. It seemed like he had a pretty strong sense of being respectful of other people. One thing that frustrates me is when I see people commenting saying, he had 6 kids, how could he do this to his kids? How could he do this to his family? And that's completely discounting how mental health can consume you, and it makes you illogical, and it makes you do things that do not make sense and do not reflect who you care about. He could not help what he was going through. Well, my instinct is to be angry at these people. They just have not been educated. So it's important to remain calm and to try your best to educate these people, to listen to their perspective and to try and explain why they're incorrect. I was talking to someone recently who said she was trying to deal with her mental health issues by herself, and she said she didn't want to get anyone else's help because she wanted to prove to herself that she could do it alone. A lot of people, I feel, think this, but it's so unhealthy and it's so illogical. It doesn't make you less strong. It's like you're saying you're less strong because you use the internet to talk to your friends as opposed to walking to them every time. Just because we now know ways to improve our mental health that involve getting help from external sources doesn't make you a worse person or a weaker person. It just means you understand that these things can help you, and you are just like anyone else. Treat yourself like you would treat your friends. A lot of people would say to their friends to get help, but then they would never do it themselves. But don't face that hypocrisy in themselves. I'm incredibly glad to have met Chester before he died. I posted a picture on Twitter after having met him and said how cool it was to have met him. And he responded. I think it was like, right back at you, homie, or something. He did not have to respond to that. Think how many freaking thousands of interviews this guy has gone through, and yet he was still friendly enough to reply to that. He was an incredibly considerate person. I'm glad he got to have such an interesting life. He clearly had the ability to make his friends laugh too. Like, there were things he was saying that made Mike laugh really hard while we were hanging out.
It doesn't matter if you tell me you don't like it. Yeah. Like, some people like sea urchin. I think it tastes like licking the pavement and then ball sacks. Right, like it tastes like a dirty ball sack. Yeah.
Do you have to censor that? Does your channel have a rating?
There's probably some fantastic ball sacks out there, but you mix it with pavement, I'm not gonna like it. You know what I mean?
Up until this point, my kids could have watched this video on YouTube.
I'll give you the time code.
How do you know I'm not talking about? How do you know I'm not talking about a sack that you would?
Oh, yeah,
like at school.
One,
you like when they have.
Yeah, dude, jeez.
The ball sack.
I didn't say testicles.
There it is.
See, Mike's brain, dude, he's like in the gutter all the time.
Really,
I can't imagine what the band is going through and what his family and friends are going through. But even if what I'm experiencing isn't as intense as what they're experiencing, it's still real. I don't know. It feels weird making this. I don't know. There's a part of me that feels kind of like a fraud making this. Because I feel so disconnected, but I do care. I care about this person. It's frustrating that I don't feel more than I do in circumstances like this. I don't know a positive spin on that. It just sucks. Perhaps the positive spin is that if other people experience it, maybe they don't feel quite as alone. You're not a bad person if you didn't cry. In addition to that, from what I've read since then, he was very honest about talking about having depression, and talking about how he was abused as a child. And these are not easy things to bring up, particularly when a lot of people respect what you have to say. And that makes me think of, there's like this whole thing of, if you're talking about depression, then that's kind of solving it. Like that's all you have to do. You just got to talk about it. But it's not that. It's talking about it has different effects to different people. So for some people, perhaps it significantly helps. For other people, perhaps it puts them on the right track to finding what could help. And to other people, perhaps it doesn't do anything at all. And that really sucks. That's just one of those things that's like, you don't really want to talk about it because it might discourage people from trying, but it's worth trying. And talking to different people might help. One thing I've been thinking a lot about is how I tried therapy when I was really struggling during the year that I didn't release anything on YouTube. It was the worst year of my life. This has made me perhaps think that seeing one therapist isn't enough. Perhaps it's worth trying a few different therapists. Perhaps different types of people have different effects on you. So now I'm considering who else I can see. I've not met many people who have subsequently died, particularly young people. Like he was in his 40s? It's crazy young. And from what I understand, he was really close friends to Chris Cornell, who had died a few months earlier, not long after I interviewed Chester. There's a part of me that worries that this is a kind of an epidemic thing, because when one person does it, it might make it seem like an option to more people. There is a problem at the moment in society with men particularly committing suicide at a worrying rate. I haven't researched it enough to be able to give any specific reasoning as to why this might be. There's all kinds of reasons. Perhaps it's to do with not feeling like you're growing enough, or whatever it is. And sometimes there might not even be any reason whatsoever, which is one of the worst, I would imagine, aspects of depression, when you just feel that sad constantly. Perhaps the best way to end this would be to say one of their songs on their new album, the title song, One More Light, is about specifically addressing that thought that who cares if one more person dies? People die all the time. And saying, I care. And it's still important. It matters. Even if it's just one small life, it's still important. And I was listening to that song, and whereas previously I was struggling to find an appreciation for it, because it was very different to what I normally listen to, now I have a context to appreciate that. He was a huge advocate for trying things that you wanted to try, even if other people disagreed with you. Because that's what makes you grow, and that's what makes you happy.
When you set up like an expectation, and the thing about music is like there's always this anticipation, like what are they gonna do next? Like what's gonna sound like, and you're starting like building up like this idea of what that might be. When it's not that thing, is like what is that? Interestingly enough, when it comes to our music, it's kind of been that way for every song, no matter what kind of style it is for us, with a lot of people. It's funny because like it's always a couple albums later, like where someone is mad about the new thing we're doing, and then someone who was mad at something that we did a long time ago is like, hey dude, like I felt that way about 1,000 Suns, man, but now it's one of my favorite records. Like give it time, you know. It's
That's
like
really cool.
I think a lot of people think that we may get upset about people responding in a weird way to us.
You gotta expect it though, haven't you?
It's like, dude, like you don't like, look, we make music for us to make us happy and to get out something internally, or to talk about something, or to learn something new, or to try something different creatively, to like feed that beast in us. I think it would really suck if we worked on something we weren't sure about and were convinced to do it by external forces.
Has that happened before?
No. But I'm saying, like, imagine...
They tried. There was a guy at the label who said, you know, you guys need a gimmick. Like, this was on our first record before anybody had ever heard of the band. Oh, you need a gimmick. Like, Joe could, for example, dress up in a cowboy hat and a lab coat. And we were just like... Oh,
Chester could kick his shoe off at every show.
That's
his thing. Like, during, like an intense part of the show, like, he fucking just kicks his shoe off. Like, if there was an external force going, do this, it's gonna be great. Trust me. If you do this, people will love it. Do this, people will love it. And we're like, okay, but, like, we kind of want to do this, but I guess we'll do that. And then people hate it. We'd be like, fuck!
Yeah.
Right? Like, God, I should have never done that.
I've heard that story. If 100% of the world, when we put out a song, when we put out any of our songs, if 100% of the world turned around and said, like, we hate this song, this is the worst song that has ever been made. Okay, it offends
everyone.
It offends everyone.
The entire population.
This is a low point in the history of music.
You'd be like, I like it.
And at the very least, I can go, oh well, like.
Or the answer could be like, not everybody.
Yeah.
I like it.
I'm the guy.
There were a lot of really admirable
I mean,
things
like,
about the way he thought. Yeah. I'm glad I got the chance to meet him. I think we can all afford to be a bit more like Chester Bennington, to be a bit sillier and a bit more thoughtful and respectful, and to be crazy talented rap metal singers. He had a hell of a voice. I'm glad I can listen to that.